Good morning, everyone. Let's start with our daily market commentary. Now, what we see is basically the weekly chart of Nifty, and it is very clear that Nifty on the weekly chart was weak from the top, but we have seen good buying coming in at the lower levels. So there was always on the weekly format, the first 2-3 days of the week used to be bad, and then a buying used to come in the last end of the week or so. Again, when we see over here, the previous week, the same thing happened. The selling came in and then the buying comes in. This week also started with a weak note. So what we see is Monday, Tuesday, and now Wednesday almost going down towards this higher the levels of support. But the point is you might find one bounce back happening from these end as well. Now, the most important point to understand from Nifty, where we had already said these were the important levels or zone on the higher side 11,350 250 kind of range, but if you go down, these were the prior resistance which was there at 11,000. So one thing is that, and second, if we go down to the point where the top of the Moribazu was made, continuous small candles came into play and then a continuous selling comes by. So the previous low was made around this zone of 11,250 and it is coming again to retest the zone of 11,250. Now it is very much clear for 2 weeks if it makes or sustains this level, most pointly which can happen in the last 4 days of expiry, it might spike down towards 11,000 or so. So 11,000 can be into coming in coming days or so because of the expiry coming near. The volatility will be more, and the things which are unexpected can obviously happen. Now, what we need to understand from this entire downfall which you are seeing from last 3 weeks. Number one, since the momentum was losing out, we were very much clear that yes, the fall can come. We were also understanding that yes, these are the levels where fall can come, and we can see from 11,800 it has come in this zone. Now the point of understanding is if it goes below these levels, so this week low and the previous week low roughly around 250 kind of range, so 11,250 once it is taken out, and if you can see this was the prior low as well, so more or less 3 lows coming down in that same range, you can see a straight fall towards 11,000 or so. So I won't be surprised in the last 4 days of expiry, this might settle right now over here for this week, and in the last 4 days you can see a good fall of again 250 points in Nifty, almost inching towards 11,000. Now what one has to understand after the month of September gets done, if the extended fall happens towards the level of 11,000, if you go back and you see in the month of Feb, when the fall happened, it went almost sideways, and for 4 weeks it went down all of a sudden, right? So this fall was very fast, and what we can see, the 2 weeks it was trying to make the same lows, and then you see one more selling coming by. So when there is an aggregate selling which comes through, there is an obviously a quick bounce back that will happen. So let's annotate the previous up move which we have seen, just trying to understand whether we can see the same this time or no, and whether we can form some kind of judgment from these fall. So what we basically saw over here, we understood that the fall came in, and then we saw the rise also came through very fast. Now it is very much clear if the fall is coming for 4 weeks continuously, in the next 4 week itself the bounce was taking place. The most important point was from the fall, the point from where the fall happened, it almost retraced to the same level, right? So one thing is very clear, the fall which is happening from these levels, it came back suddenly towards that level which was very fast, which was not expected by people. Now let's understand the same logic over here. The fall is happening, right? So the fall is basically taking place. Our agenda is, if the fall which is almost towards these levels extends downside, right? So if it extends downside to this zone around 11,000 or so, and we basically start entering in the month of October, I won't be surprised if we can see 500 points rally almost towards 11,600 or so. So this is very much in line kind of stuff which can happen. So here I am basically waiting for last week of expiry, more selling should come in. So there will be kind of panic selling in public or in retailers, where they will try to sell more and everyone will be more bearish, and suddenly what we will see, a quick bounce back of 400 500 points on Nifty. So what I see over here, or the judgment is very much clear. Let the fall come, let him get more worsen at least for 250 points in the time of expiry, right? And if you go back and see the dates, it was also in the time of expiry. So it is very much clear that yes, if the time of expiries are bad, and if you can see the last time also the selling took place, which was very harsh, and you can see a quick bounce back coming through. So this is where we are trying to understand, yes, the bounce back can come through, and roughly around 500 points of bounce is clearly visible. So if it inches towards 11,000 or so, we are very much clear that yes, after 11,000, it can go towards 11,600 or so. So that's the takeaway from Nifty. And let's go and see whether we can get some clue on the daily perspective. So weekly seems to be a very important level, 11,250 kind of zone. Let us see whether the same is happening in the daily structure as well or no. So it is very much clear, yes, even on the daily structure, what I see, this was the important level where the gap up has happened. So this was the previous gap up, and it zoomed up, came back to the same point, and it went all the way up. Now once it comes down, it has tested this zone, right, from where it has tested it prior as well. Now second time when the bounce came, it again comes down to the same level. So kind of double bottom formation. But as I said, if these levels are taken out, okay, it is very much clear that the downside might be visible of filling the gap and inching towards 11,000 zone. Because if I look over here, this was the consolidation zone which happened for at least a week. So 1, 2, 3, 4 highs were taken out by small candles, and then it was a small jump. It retested and it flew like a rocket. So now the point is, if this kind of levels get reached 250 or so towards the end of expiry, one thing is pretty much clear: a straight fall towards 11,075 kind of range can easily be reached, or 11,080 or so. So I basically see more 200 points to 300 points of downfall, and if that happens, it is basically very good towards the end of expiry. So the weak hands will be taken out, and people will basically get more bearish rather than being bullish, and you can see a good jump up happening towards 11,500 to 600 points. Now what we see even on the jump up, which is very, very important, if you try to understand this kind of forming a base, and if a jump happens at the higher level, one thing is pretty much clear: the higher levels are being capped now at 11,600 zone. Why? Because this was the base of the Moribazu. It came down, it tested over here, it went down, it did not even reach to that zone, and the selling comes in. So one thing is very clear: if it goes down and if it tries to inch higher, the bigger uptrend in Nifty will only start after 11,600. So I do not see Nifty in a concrete uptrend. It is very, very clear. It has to basically violate this level, break this level on the upside, and then only a good uptick can happen. Now we need to go out and see, is Bank Nifty being the worst performer, or is supporting Nifty? So what I see on Bank Nifty, this is the weekly chart, the same thing reiterates. So we have been saying that on the top it consolidated, and then the level got broke, it went almost down. So most important point on Bank Nifty which one has to understand, the level which has been broken was the prior high. So the prior high acted like a support, and then it got broke. It came down, and then we have understood that this was a huge support line, 26,500 or so. Now what's happening over here? This was the prior low, it bounced back, but now what happens over here? Suddenly in 3 days, this level is taken out. So there is a rising intention of rising interest rates scenario, and RBI meeting is coming up by 5th of October. Now try to understand, before the meeting, if Bank Nifty goes down to a lower base of 26,000, okay, and if these 26,000 levels are reached, so that clearly shows a lot of downturn or rise in interest rate, or the bad information is being priced in. Now even RBI increases interest rates, and if Bank Nifty has corrected from 28,500, 400 odd levels to 26,000, that clearly shows 2,500 points downside is already being captured. Now once that kind of extensive selling comes in towards the end of the expiry or first week of October, again you will see Bank Nifty also bouncing back. So what we basically see, the levels of 27,500 now is the upper limit of Bank Nifty. So if Bank Nifty comes down towards the zone of 26,000 or so, there will be a good bounce which will happen from 26,000 to 27,400 range, right? So that is clear uptick of 1500 to 1000 points in Bank Nifty in next month, which is quite possible. Now, the most important point to understand, banking stocks, if it has to be in a bull territory, it will only happen after 27,500. If you see over here, it was flying high all through. Yes Bank, even the Kotak Bank, HDFC banks were making new highs. But now suddenly what happens? Everyone has fallen 10% or more. So this clearly shows a lot of optimism was built in. Now it has been taken out. It has to be taken out very brutally. So it might even come towards 26,000. We need to be ready on the opposite side. We need to be there till the expiry, let him come down. And once the expiry is out of our way, the first week of October, RBI out of the way, then you can see a good bounce coming into Bank Nifty towards 27,500 kind of range. So try to encash 1000 point rally minimum in Bank Nifty in coming in the month of October, right? So this week or maybe last 4 weeks, the 4 days of expiry can be a little brutal and on the downside. So seeing the banking stocks, it is very much visible that they are obviously under pressure. Let's see the gainer and losers of Nifty. So what I see on the gainer side, it's ONGC, Coal India, GAIL, Tata Steel. So all the commodity stocks are picking up. Number one. Number two, pharma is still up. And now the IT are not showing strength. One thing is again clear. The second point, there is no bank on the gaining side, right? Second, when I come down to the losing side, as I discussed last time as well, the HDFC, Bajaj Finance, all the consumer facing stocks, HUL and all the stocks which can be under pressure because of rising interest rate scenario and the valuation getting capped out are basically under pressure. So this clearly shows the banks are not at all in the gaining side. Not even a single bank are in the top gainers, which basically shows Bank Nifty is on the downslide. Now, what we see on Bank Nifty, a simple daily chart I have pulled out of Bank Nifty just to understand the trend. So what we saw was the Bank Nifty was rising higher, then it consolidated at these levels, and this is where the crossover happened. So exactly after the huge sell-off, the crossover took place, which was very much decisive, and then the fall keeps happening. The question here is why I'm trying to put these indicators. It will not give you a buy or sell signal. It will just help you to understand the trend. Now the trend is clearly downside, and this exponential moving average, orange one, is moving fast down compared to the blue one. Till it does not converge or till it doesn't go sideways, it will not converge. So that clearly shows Bank Nifty can still go downside, and there is little room left maybe on the downside as well. What we see over here, orange line always has to be higher than the blue line. It was always up, always up, always up, and then what happened? It started, the gap started not widening but basically narrowing down. That clearly shows a sign of trend reversal. So what am I looking at? I'm looking at these two, just the moving averages, just to see whether they will converge. Once it starts converging, it will basically give you a sign of reversal can happen. But we know the event of 5th October that is also on the way, and hence I'm saying there can be a spike down towards 26,200 kind of range before a huge up move can start, right? So keep an eye on that. Let's take some non-banking stocks since all the banking stocks are already down. Let's see Reliance. So Reliance, I've just put a moving indicator over here just to understand Reliance kind of gone on the sideways formation. So what we see on Reliance is also trying to go sideways. Now after the sell-off, it is trying to go down, but now it is not getting down anymore. So one good stock, a heavyweight of Nifty, is now going sideways. And there is no huge downside in Reliance. When we see over here, Reliance might come down from 1215 levels to 1190 or so, which is not a bigger downside for Reliance. So one thing is that the Reliance doesn't seem to be weak. Let's see if ITC, Maruti, all these stocks which are heavyweights are seeming to be on sideways or on the downside. What we see on ITC, it had gone down like a spike. It went up, buying took place, almost sustained there, and now it is going in the sideways direction. The most important point for ITC is to understand whether 296 levels can be breached or not. If this is not breached, it is very clear after 307, again we can see level of 315 or so, and on the higher side 320 or so. So again, this ITC is going on the sidelines. Let's go out and see Maruti. And even on the IT stocks, TCS and Infosys. So what we see on Maruti, same like Bank Nifty. What's happening over here? The crossover has happened and the trend is just going down. It is not ready to stop at any point. So what's happening on Maruti as well? If we go out and see, the bigger support line has been breached and one side Maruti has gone down. So if I start with the start of September itself, the fall has been from 9,400 to 8,400 and it is not stopping, right? So Maruti seems to be weak, but the downside may be limited and not much more. That is more important because there has been a huge selling which is coming through. Going out and understanding TCS. Now TCS buyback will be out of the way, but still there is some time. So till then TCS is still strong. After a sell-off because of the dollar, what we see again, dollar rising, it is also rising higher. So TCS seems to be in sideways, ITC sideways, more or less all are in sideways. Let's say Hind Unilever, because Unilever has also corrected a lot. But what we see, Hind Unilever, after the big sell-off which has happened, and yesterday Hind Unilever was at the top gainer in NSE. So that clearly shows, and you can see this kind of crossover happening. But I'm not saying a huge upside is there, but I'm saying it is not on the downside. So HUL also seems to be on a good foothold. So ITC, HUL, Maruti, TCS, all are in good side. Let's see Infosys. Infosys was strong, was going sideways, but there is a different story in Infosys. So at the start of the week itself, we showed that Infosys is going sideways, and more importantly, this week itself, it is going on the downside. Now, why is it that TCS is going up and Infosys is going down? Right? As we told prior as well, the bonus issue is done. So the good side of Infosys is over. Only now the dollar can support Infosys. The most important thing that I would suggest in our screener, if you go down to the last, okay, you can see the on Monday itself we showed you a script called as Infosys. So when Infosys kind of a weekly setup shows that it is in so many strategies, and if it breaks out, then there is a good amount of chance for this entire week Infosys will remain weak. So on back of good dollar and everything, what we can see here at the start of the week itself from 726, it has come in around on the lower side, and most importantly it can even touch the levels of 710 or so. So always try to see the weekly structures or stocks in the weekly structures, and then also you can get some idea. Two banks where we were always bearish, there was Axis Bank and ICICI Bank. Now actually Bank Nifty was basically going down yesterday. If you see, as we had said in our commentary, 630 levels of Axis Bank, it can reach almost towards 600 or so, and almost did that, and that basically pulled Bank Nifty lower yesterday. Even after that, if you go out and see ICICI Bank, ICICI Bank also consolidated at the higher levels, and then we are seeing that yes, a downside or downtick is coming by. But as we said last time, that ICICI has been grinding sideways more rather than downside, right? So, but Axis remains to be more weak, and but ICICI does not show good strength any which ways. So agenda is pretty much clear. There is no good downside by the heavyweight now anymore, and that is where a last downside can come in the last 4 days of expiry, but that will be a fake downside, and a good upside is possible in the month of November. So I would be a little cautious to trade. It is better to be aside for at least till the expiry. Keep a view on as to which stocks have corrected and start looking out for a positive buy, right? So keep that in mind, and let us understand towards the end of expiry how things pan out. And these were the levels which we will try to keep in mind. Thank you for joining in, and we'll connect again tomorrow.